The one thing that remains to be seen, and again, you can only play who's on your schedule, of course. I'm not trying to go down the route of who's Indiana played, which, of course, they have not had the toughest of schedules, and that's totally fine. Indiana's not used to having a schedule that is as favorable whenever you look at what they've had in the past. But I guess the one thing when we're talking about the offenses and the efficiency and that type of stuff, we'll really get a feel as the season progresses. Now that we're fully going into Big Ten play from here on out, on if this type of efficiency will continue to, I guess, just stay the way that it is. And there's going to be some drop off. Indiana's not going to run through this entire schedule, even if they find ways to win in each of these games. The one thing that will be the most fascinating, though, is just how they're able to continue to have games where they're staying on schedule against opponents like Nebraska that are a few weeks away. Even Maryland this upcoming week. I don't know if you've looked at the FPI recently, Mitchell, and I know you've looked at it before where they were projected to win. I think now it's 11 of 12 games.
11.
But the second most likely in terms of percentage of them to lose is actually this upcoming weekend against Maryland. That could have changed since I last looked, but it was either them or Michigan that were the second most, because again, the only loss that's projected
really
on
close.
The FPI is Ohio State.
I looked at it today. Ohio State is still like 13% chance for Indiana to win. But Michigan, Indiana percentage is like 60, maybe on the dot.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
There's a chance.
I think Maryland's like 63, 64, something like that.
They're really, really close. Everything else is like 70+% Indiana to win. Maryland just always, for whatever reason, I think Loxley's a great coach. They can spread you out. They just are a kind of funky team to play that it's just a hard game you just got to get by it, right? Get through it. They have a bunch of athletes. They recruit the Northeast really well, and they just have really good players that sometimes can't put it all together. And it helps a lot that Tua Tagovailoa is, or not Tua Tagovailoa, whatever, his older brother, whatever. But you look at now this new guy who I know nothing
Billy
about.
Edwards Jr. He has a very non-Northeastern name.
Who knows what you follow and what you trust, but everything that I see in terms of his ranking, his grade week to week is about as good as Curtis Rourke. And anytime you have a quarterback, everything churns a lot easier. I mean, just look at Indiana. When you have a guy that's as efficient and as poised and confident as Curtis Rourke, everything becomes easier. And now all of a sudden they look like a freight train that you better get out of the way. A quarterback gets on a roll like that, same thing can happen in Indiana. I think, at least in the very beginning of the game, Hoosiers got exposed a little bit. Gave some plays up.
Defense was, I don't want to go as far as to say it was atrocious, but there was a point in the second quarter where I felt like Charlotte could just do whatever the hell they wanted to when they were running the ball.
And that's what happened. So you get a little on your heels. And that's all that happened. Indiana was still really good on defense, just like they have been the entire year. I love Twitter, as you know, and the freak out on Twitter was, oh my God, we're the worst defense. Like, relax. We gave up 2 touchdowns. They are on scholarship too. They have coaches that are scheming all week to try to score touchdowns. They had some things work, and it's a game of momentum, right? You get a little on the ball, a little pace to your offense. Everything seems to be happening easy, and now the defense is on their heels. Probably got a lot of base coverage because once you get that first initial good play, now you're on the ball quicker. Defense doesn't have time to make adjustments. So you're getting a lot of base defense. And the way Indiana plays, a lot of their coverages are disguised, right? They're hiding a lot of different things. They don't bring a bunch of pressures from all over the place, but everything it's not what you see, right? As a quarterback, he's a little tricked when Indiana can get set, but when you get 1 good play, 2 good plays, 3 good plays, defense gets on its heels. I don't care who it is. Like I said, we did it to Michigan. We did it to Ohio State. There's first-round draft picks on the other side of the ball on those teams. And when we get on schedule, it's really hard for a defense because the offense knows where they're going, right? So we can call our play in 1 second, get back on the ball, run the next one. Defense can't do that. They're trying to make adjustments. So, yeah, you give up some big plays. You give up some pops. They are on scholarship. It's a Division I program that's in the American Conference. This isn't somebody that
Which I didn't
plays.
realize. I didn't realize they were in that good of a league. The American,
Yes,
in my opinion, maybe
it's
outside of the
fifth league.
Mountain West, is probably the second best G5 conference there is out there.
Agree. It's a really solid league. They're going to play some really good teams throughout the year. They have good players. They're in Charlotte, which is a hotbed of talent. Some guys maybe you've never heard of. Indiana, a lot of guys you had never heard of. So there's skill on that side of the ball. They are going to make plays. Indiana played phenomenal on both sides of the ball in all phases, just like they have. And it was a complete demolition. Once again, Indiana never in doubt. The game, even when they were on schedule on offense, it still didn't feel like there was a chance in the world that Indiana was going to lose that game. It felt like a matter of time before the freight train came into the station, right? Like you better get out of the way with what you can because we're coming. And it's just felt like that all 4 games.
I think that may be the most difficult thing for certain aspects of the fan base to really grasp onto, is because you see the way things are going at that point in the first half, and you're like, okay, here comes the same old Indiana. That's
Yes.
the phrase that Indiana football fans love to cling on to. And I'm not going to act like I'm not a part of that, because you and I were texting back and forth, you and I and Dustin Schutte, and there was a point where I even said, like, this is looking like a Kevin Wilson defense whenever one team's just scoring after the other. And then thankfully, once you got to those last few minutes of the second quarter, we saw something that the team had not done yet, and that's close out the first half in a very positive way. And then by that point, at the beginning of the third quarter, you've buried Charlotte by scoring, I guess, 3 straight times at that point, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. And from there, it was never in doubt.
It was never in doubt. And I think you hit the nail on the head. The fan base has been groomed to, at first sign of trouble, panic for so long. So I'm not angry. When I got into a couple little Twitter fights, not even fights, but just like, calm down. We're going to be okay. Because to someone that has watched this for X, insert number of years here, like even 2 years, it feels like when the train gets off the tracks, I keep using these train references.
That's a fair, I know it may seem like you're overusing it, but like that's the truth with some, right. Like there will be points where it seems like things are no longer on schedule, the way that, at least to this point in the season, Indiana's never been off schedule. So it's weird to see them go off the rails at times.
Exactly. And I think that's what I was trying to convey. Like, hey, this is still Division I football. Winning is still hard. We've given up 2 touchdowns. Let's put this into perspective. If we give up 2 touchdowns every game, we're going to be 12-0. Like, giving up 21 points a game is really good defense. And I don't think, has Indiana even come close to giving up 21 points yet?
No, 14 is their highest.
Yeah. And it's never felt like
defensive. Yeah.
It never felt like 21 was even a possibility. So I understand the panic and the ingrained fear that Indiana fans have that all of this happiness has to come crashing down. And I'm with you. Hoosier fans, I stand with you. I feel it too. But you have to it just doesn't feel, when it's time to bow up, they have. And that's all we've seen from this edition of the Indiana Hoosiers. When it's time to make a play, they have guys that make the play over and over and over again. And I'm a believer. I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt until really the wheels have fallen off. Not just started to get shaky, fallen off. They just have too much talent, and I think they're really well coached, and I think that's the difference. This coaching staff puts players, quarterback to kicker, in places to succeed. It's been really, really cool to watch guys just excel by being in the right place. And that's coaching, that's listening to coaches. They're just extremely disciplined, and you're not used to seeing that as an Indiana fan. And now we're starting to get to the meat of the schedule. I can't wait for Saturday.
Yeah. I think there'll be plenty of nerves. And you mentioned Maryland's quarterback, Billy Edwards Jr., very similar to Curtis Rourke. Really the biggest glaring difference between the two so far this season. Curtis Rourke has not thrown a pick yet. Edwards Jr. has 2 picks. I don't know which games or game, whatever. I don't know which one that came in, Could have been against Michigan State, their only loss on the year. But it'll be for sure. I don't want to say I'm expecting a shootout because, again, maybe the Indiana defense prevails. I don't even know if there's a spread yet on this game at the time of this recording. There may be later on. But if you were predicting the spread, unless you know it, Mitchell, what would you set it at? Because here's what I would put it at. I think it will be, I'm thinking 6.5 Indiana, maybe 7.5.
I don't think Vegas quite believes in Indiana yet.
And I'm with you. That's why I'm thinking it realistically could be more than that.
7.5 was in my head. I bet Indiana all the way up to probably 13.5.
Yeah. We'll just have to wait and see at that point, but everyone's excited. It seems like I'd love to see a full crowd at Memorial Stadium for the first time this year, this Saturday. It's another noon kick. So yeah.
I feel like we should talk about the crowd again. Anytime there's a noon kick, especially for an opponent like Charlotte, it's going to take some time for people to trickle in. But at least what it looked like on TV, I was not able to go this week. It looked like it filled up and people stayed. So I think that fans are hearing the message. Now that we're into Big Ten season, most likely there's not going to be a 5-touchdown difference between Indiana and their opponent in a lot of these games, maybe some, but in a lot of them, now is when you start to really make an impact as a fan. So I'm guessing it's a noon kick, maybe 75% capacity at kickoff. I'm guessing 90, 95, maybe 100% capacity by halfway through the first quarter. And I think it's going to be a great game. Hopefully get some great weather and people stick around because this is a team. I texted my mom. You'll like this. You'll think this is funny. I texted her, this is no joking. This was 100% serious that I think I have to go to every game for the rest of the season because this just feels like magic. It feels magical.
I do love that.
Some things in life, you can just sense it. Think the stars align and you want to talk about setting yourself up for sadness. I have done it. I'm here. I am all the way in. There's just something about the team that if you aren't in the stadium, if you aren't paying attention, it just feels like you're missing out. So Indiana fans, if you'll be there, shoot me a tweet. We'll love to meet up with some folks.